Yesterday, the Manitoba Band Association's Optimist Festival wrapped up. From February 28th through today, the 2nd, jazz bands made their way to the Franco-Manitoban Cultural Centre to share some music and get valuable feedback through adjudication. To give us just a little sampling of some of the sounds heard, we've got the Sturgeon Heights Jazz in the Diamond Lane, a quintet for your next Birchwood Jaguar 107 Live.
From the Classic 107 studios in downtown Winnipeg, 107 Live for Birchwood Jaguar, the art of performance.
Diamond Lane. You just heard Sturgeon Heights Jazz. Guys, that was really awesome. It sounded absolutely outstanding, and I think you guys win for I don't think we've ever had this much gear in the studio before, so that was really, really awesome. I most thoroughly enjoyed that. We're going to have a little conversation now with band director Kathy Byrne and Joel Green, the ensemble director. Guys, thanks for coming by the studio today.
Pleasure.
Thanks for having us.
Oh, it really is our pleasure, especially with a sound like this. Kathy, I'm going to begin with you. What can you tell us about this ensemble? Who's all here?
Well, we've on bass we've got Brandon Henry, and on drums we've got Joseph Lezak. We've got two keyboard players in this group. You heard a solo from Cole Henniger on the keys, and we've also got Emma Lewis. And on trombone we've got Caleb Rondo.
Wow. Yeah, that's right. Two keyboards actually in the studio, guys. I can't get over this. It was absolutely awesome. Joel, I'm just going to throw it over to you very, very quickly. What can you tell us about this particular quintet? How did everybody come together?
At the beginning of the year, it's a group of grade 11s and 12s, and they were really eager to work on their improvisation in a small jazz setting. Unfortunately for them, the only time that usually I'm available to come in is mornings. So we usually meet at 7:30 on a weekday morning and talk about kind of jazz and how to work through changes and how to make a song interesting and all kinds of jazz concepts like that.
What's jazz like in the morning?
A little groggy sometimes,
Yeah.
usually a couple minutes late.
Yeah, no, I've definitely been there. Can you tell us a little bit about your background? How'd you get involved with Sturgeon Heights?
Full disclosure, I'm married to the choral teacher at Sturgeon Heights, so I've worked with, I think, almost everyone here in a musical theater setting before, because I help with musical theater as well. Personally, I'm a trombone player from Toronto, and went to school for jazz there, and then moved out to Winnipeg about 5 years ago. Always really loved working with high school students and promoting an interest and enthusiasm towards jazz and music in general.
Totally. Kathy, I'm going to invite you back to the mic over here very quickly. In terms of jazz and concert band, do you see a lot of overlap between the students? Like, were you guys participating in band festival Manitoba Band Association Festival, the Optimus Festival last weekend too? Or
Yes.
last week, rather?
Yeah. Are these same students who are in grades 11 and 12 performed at the concert band portion of the Optimus Festival last weekend. So.
Between those two differences, I mean, like, how do you really go about navigating them? Like, I know we were talking off the air. I did the concert band thing, never made the cut for jazz band, fully willing to admit it. Where do you go about finding that repertoire? And is there one that you really kind of jive towards?
I mean, they are very similar, but they're very different as
absolutely.
well. So I think that the main difference between them and actually almost everybody in this quintet plays a different instrument in concert band than they do in this jazz quintet and in jazz band, which is kind of a neat opportunity for them because not only are they learning a different genre, but they're also learning technique on a different instrument. And I think once you have that initial foundation on one instrument, there are a lot of skills that can kind of transfer from one to another. And in terms of the difference between music in concert band versus music in jazz band, in concert band, we're not generally improvising. We're playing what's on the page and trying to come up with the creative ideas just from how do we interpret what the composer wrote on the page and what do we know about the composer, what do we know about the history of the piece. And that's kind of where the creativity comes in that situation. In jazz, there's a whole language and I guess alphabet of how do you go about understanding chord tones and scales, and then how do you apply those over the top of harmonic changes. And there's a rhythmic element to it too, and understanding kind of where you are in the sequence of chords, and then understanding enough about those chords and scales to be able to come up with something that is musical and yet still fits with the form. So I think that it's more, jazz is a little bit more in your own personal head, because you have to understand a lot about theory to be creative. And then one of the neat things about working with a combo is that they create their own arrangements of the tunes that they're playing. And they literally come up with, okay, well, what are we going to do for an introduction? How can we harmonize the melody? What are we going to do for an ending? And that's something that's really cool, working with students.
So speaking of those arrangements, what did we hear to begin this Birchwood Jaguar 107 Live?
I'll let Joel speak to that.
A tune called Work Song. We'd been working on Work Song for a few months, and then the group had rehearsal without me on a afternoon sometime, and I came back into the next rehearsal, and they just said, we worked out this arrangement. So they figured out the stop time thing, and yeah, they're very. It's a very creative group of kids, and I think Kathy hit it right on that they're very involved in lots of different aspects of music, and I think that their ability to play jazz and come up with ideas on their own speaks to that they sing in choirs and are in musical theater productions and play in concert band and play in jazz combo and play in big band, and you kind of see it all coming together.
Yeah, just being a well-rounded musician, right?
Absolutely.
Just laying that solid foundation. Guys, I want to thank you so much for coming by the studio today. Can I ask you guys to play one more? Would that be all right? You're all set up in here. What are we going to hear to go?
We're going to hear a Adderley Brothers tune called Mercy, 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 which is a little funkier and departure from what we would normally think of as jazz, but is just as much as of the jazz canon as anything else.
Perfect. Well, they get set up to hear something a little bit funkier. I want to thank you, Kathy Byrne, for coming by, and Joel Green, and the Sturgeon Heights Jazz Quintet. Here's one more tune for you, In the Diamond Lane. Diamond Lane. You just heard Sturgeon Heights Jazz. Guys, thanks again for coming by. That was absolutely awesome.
107 Live is Classic 107's intimate concert series, brought to you by Birchwood Jaguar, the art of performance.